And now on Who's Views, it's time for the latest headlines with JT and the Whotastic panel.
Hello, yes, it's Who's Views. We are back again. Thank you for watching. Lovely to see you all. I hope you've got yourselves a cup of tea because here we go again. And have you heard? Fandom's a mess and Big Finish. What's going on over there? Joining me to talk about these stories, I have got Paul and I've got the third Dr. Ian. Hello.
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 How are you both?
Not too bad. How are you?
Good, thank you.
We've got a packed show, I think, coming up tonight. I really do think we've got a packed show coming up tonight. And also, before we start, actually, I'd like to say to everybody, thank you very much for everybody that's subscribing to the channel and also sending in bits and pieces for the shows. I really appreciate it. So thank you very much. If you've got anything that you want to send us that you think could be good for the show, then there's the email address there, whosviews1@gmail.com. And I want to say a big thank you at the top of the show to both Tony Crosby and George Seaton, who have done exactly that this week. And we've got some of the material that they've sent us this week in this show. But guys, everybody in the chat, I want to start with ratings update. Yes, I can see that Paul and Third Doctor Ian are both really excited by this. Well, in our last show that we've been talking about the ratings, I did promise you, oh, faithful subscribers and watchers, I did promise you that, of course, we would revisit this. The Saturday night entertainment blockbuster of this moment in time. How long will it last? Who knows? Gladiators. And I did say that I would give you the consolidated. Well, the consolidated are out for episode 1 that we were talking about just that couple of weeks ago. The consolidated for episode 1 was a staggering 8,364,000. So there you go. Now that's quite a lot, isn't it, everybody, in the context of what we're all talking about? This has been covered in a number of places, but there it is there for the week beginning 8th to the 14th of January. Gladiators episode 1, number 1 in the charts there. That's the consolidated. Now, interestingly, the overnights, if you remember, guys, was 7.4. Was that right? I'm sure that was right. Yeah, it was 7.4, so it's jumped. But it's jumped to that 8,364 for the consolidated,
and that's beaten Doctor Who again, really, isn't
it?
So,
yeah,
there we are.
Yeah.
Can I just ask how many times Phil may have watched this with Teddy and Zach, just to check on that? Okay.
If Phil is watching, let us know. Let us know if the poor guy must be fed up with it now, surely. But apparently, it has been a really good. Well, obviously, you can tell there. People did go back on the iPlayer. But anyway, there you go. Promise fulfilled. There was the consolidated for episode 1 of Gladiators. Do they call them episodes? I don't know. I have no idea. Let's have a look and see who's in the chat before we get on to the next bit. I want to say hello to Richard. The good old days when Doctor Who was for everyone. We're going to be talking about that in this very show, of course, Richard, because we are talking fandom and it is in the mess. Meddling Funk is here, so hello to you, sir. Kirsty is saying, hit the like button, please, my kids. And she's using that trendy Z. Garbage is saying, yay. Garbage is always saying, yeah, he's always having a party. Sadeko24, hello. Nice to see you. Nice to see you. Simon wants to know, why is Ian the third Doctor?
Because Pertwee was my first Doctor, and although I love Tom Baker, I am very loyal to my first, and that was the man.
So there you go.
That's a good enough reason.
It is a good enough reason, isn't it? Woodhouse 122. Hello, it's nice to see you as well. Thank you for joining us. Let's have a look. Oh, Atom is here. Oh, bless you. Nice to see you. Thank you for saying that. That's great. Lovely. And yes, Garbage, that was a lot, wasn't it, for the Consolidateds? And also he's saying that for a show with very little promotion. Yes, because that's what we were saying last time, wasn't it? You know, it didn't really get that much as far as we can see. Hello to Doug. Nice to hear from you as well. Thank you very much for getting in touch. And Tony is saying Lycra Mania. Stephen is with us as well. Hello, Stephen. Nice to see you. Thank you for doing that. And here's Raymond. Woo!
Hail.
And Alien Airplanes is here. I have a new PFP. So you do. It looks very cold.
What's a PFP?
Don't know.
Profile pictures.
Okay.
He will tell us.
Answers in the chat, please. Would be good. Thank you.
Profile
Profile picture. There you are. Yeah. You're younger than me. You're younger than me, and it's fine.
The BBC is putting the con into consolidated, Richard. Allegedly. And that's what we have to say here as well. Alleged. Everything is alleged except those facts, which are not. Oh, and there we go. Look. Kirsty is saying it's profile photo, Grandad.
Thank you. Thank you, my niece. Thank you very much.
Freaky youngster.
Young niece, yeah.
How cheeky, how rude. Well, listen, let's get on to the topics for this evening, shall we, everybody? Thanks again for joining us. Let us know what you think of these topics we're going through. And we're going to start, actually, with well, it wasn't actually news that broke on Friday afternoon, but it was news to Doctor Who fans. Because, of course, what happened on social media when Big Finish, the audio production company, who have been going for around about 25 years or something now, and bringing lots of, not just Doctor Who, but lots of various dramas and comedies to CD and download, published their annual accounts. Now, how this got into the hands of fans, one of the main subject today, but it's all out there, isn't it? People can actually see this. And of course, this caused a fuss immediately, and it's going to be great to get all your takes on this. Yes. So, topic for this section, have they got financial concerns? Now, if you haven't seen it, this is what was going all over X, Twitter, on Friday and Saturday. And what this shows, I don't know if you can see all that, but what this shows is that, yes, okay, they have 14k in cash in the bank and 2 million with the creditors and 400k in assets. Okay, so obviously a lot of people, a lot of fans have gone through automatically saying, 2 million in debt, only 400k in assets. So the maths aren't that good. And I can understand, can't you guys, why the fans sort of went for this?
I think it's really interesting. I mean, I'm a big fan of Big Finish, and I've got lots of their work. And I was really into it quite heavily when they first started. I think they've got a license till 2025, I believe, to continue with the work that they're doing. And they do lots of different things, like you said, JT, lots of different avenues of writing, not just Doctor Who. But I'm quite surprised at this because they work, their business plan's a bit odd. They work on a subscription system, so they're relying on subscriptions to pay for upcoming work, which is a really difficult thing to do because if you're not getting subscriptions, you're not providing the money, so you're borrowing quite a lot to make it work. And at this time of year, it's tax return time. Businesses are putting these up online so you can see them.
Yes.
So it's interesting to see how they are, not in the red, are they? In the red rather than the black, rather. So they are not doing very well.
It doesn't say. I mean, Garbage is saying something very interesting here. All I know is Big Finish have been pandering over the last few years. Go woke, go broke. And by the way, thank you to Garbage and to Kirsty again in our chat, making everybody feel very welcome and doing all that moderating stuff. Thank you, you two, big parts of the team there. Yeah, I mean, I have heard this. Ian, have you heard this as well about this allegation that again they've tried to really keep in tune with the BBC overlords of the production teams for both Chibnall and, of course, the New Era, and a lot of their stories have now been branded woke.
I think they've been going down that road. I think they very much embrace everything that the BBC's doing, but the problem is when what the BBC's doing is a big pile of steaming crap, then that means they're going to be turning out a big pile of steaming crap as well. And you listen to some of the, I'm thinking specifically at the minute, Colin Baker stuff. That's been very, very woke, and I just think, and I mean, but then so's Colin. There was a picture of him. I think I shared it on X this week, where he's there in his Jodie t-shirt, and he's just like, "Can you virtue signal anymore? Do you not know they will turn and eat you at some point?" But it's all. But I mean, it's good in some respects. It's good for a business to post a loss because that means you don't get hit with tax, or you don't get hit with tax as much. But the fact that they've got 2 million owed to creditors due in the next 12 months mean they've got an awful lot to pay back. The 400 grand in assets is probably their back catalogue and studio kit, and possibly premises. After that, I mean, but you know, if you try and realize those, you'll probably not get as much as what they're valued for. So you're still left with a very, very, very large piece of debt. And then what do? Do you try and refinance, or do you just file for bankruptcy? But I think what Paul said is true. You know, it was garbage, wasn't it? Sorry, you go broke. I mean, I really, really, really liked Big Finish when they started. You know, after a few releases, they found their feet. I mean, the first one had 3 doctors in it, didn't it? Was it Davison, Baker, and McCoy?
Sirens of Time. Yeah.
And I think I got the first 50 up to
Zagreus. Yeah.
And a few specials, and I sold all of them because I started getting really, really bored of it. It seemed to be like Entity of the Month, or however frequently they released them then. I liked the Dalek stuff at the time. I kept the Dalek Empire separate series. I think there was 3 series of those. I've kept those, and I kept the 6 original Doctor Who Unbounds and the Maltese Penguin.
I remember that. Yeah.
But apart from that, I sold them all, and I haven't really bothered since. There were a few absolute corkers. Spare Parts was fantastic.
Yes.
But
the Idapor series is particularly good as well. I reckon
yeah. But they were all examples of the early days. I mean, you're talking about when they were launched in 1999, but they did run a different model back then. If you remember when they first launched on cassette as well as CD, that shows you where we were in 1999. You could get
another
them from
granddad there.
Yes, you could get them from Galaxy 4. You could walk into Galaxy 4 or the Who shop or 10th Planet, the lovely, gorgeous, all those lovely shops that we had. You could walk in and get them off the shelf. And it seemed to me as well that as time went on, that stopped to come in. And what came in favor, Paul, was what you were talking about there, the subscription service. And this must have been around about 2004-ish, maybe?
I mean, you can buy them. They're trying to go down the download model as well. And that's fatal because, as we all know, we like to hold the product in our hands. We want physical media. I think the best one in the world with Big Finish is there's so many things, as Ian said, they're doing so many things. I think they've oversaturated the market. There's too many things. And regardless of how talented you think they are or not, I think there's so many things going. They can't all be good. And it's becoming diminishing returns in terms of quality, I think, for me as a fan. And some of them aren't as good as they used to be, which is such a shame because I really like them.
Well, back when they released, you would get several a year. I'm just looking at some of this now, and it goes on and on and on because there are several a month now from what I can see here. And I'm just going to take that off there because it's very confusing. Because I stopped buying Big Finish around about the same time as you. I got to Zagreus, and that was just a terrible story in my eyes. Absolutely awful. And then it put me off. But then they tried to do something with Scherzo on with the Paul McGann season, because I loved the Paul McGann stuff. But that got a bit boring. And then they had to wrap it up and curtail it quite quickly, didn't they? Because Doctor Who was coming back on the telly.
That's right, yeah.
And it was just a bit odd how all that, and I didn't like the way I did that. You couldn't no longer, I was no longer getting them from Galaxy 4 or the Who shop or 10th Planet or wherever. You had to go through this other, because they were getting them in, but much later in the day. So that Big Finish was getting the monopoly. Let's have a look at what some of the guys are saying here as well. Hello to everybody that's watching us. It's great to see you. Welcome to Who's Views. This is Headlines. Richard is saying, I never got into Big Finish, but I have enjoyed a few stories over the year. Yes, some of those early ones. I remember being thrilled at what was it called? The Dalek Apocalypse?
Is that Apocalypse Element? The one with
Apocalypse Element, that's right,
Gallifrey,
with Colin and Lala.
Colin and Gallifrey with Evelyn, And
yes,
Evelyn was a fantastic character.
She was a wonderful Maggie Stables. She was lovely as well.
God bless her. She was good.
Woodhouse 122 said, Big Finish ended for me when they scrapped the single monthly releases and started the endless box sets. That's what I'm looking at here, Woodhouse 122. There's a hell of a lot of availability. There's an awful lot they've done there. And they seem to, as Paul may have alluded to, they're saturated a market with continual spin-offs. I mean, I notice here there's even one about the one-off character from the Planet of the Dead with David Tennant, Michelle Ryan. Blue Worm, hello.
That's right. Yeah. I don't have that one. I didn't buy that one.
Yeah. Blue Worm is asking a very interesting question, guys. Who within Big Finish is driving any woke agenda? There's usually one instigator. I would reckon it's because they're all part of that cult to beg down to the glorious leader.
I think it's think Big Finish is. I mean, I know he was instrumental in setting it off. Was it with Gary Russell? I can't remember. But
Yeah, Gary was at the head moment. Yeah.
I think it's in some respects I see Big Finish as a Nick Briggs vanity project, but then he is very much entrenched with the BBC.
Yes.
You know, with the voices and everything else, and we toured with some of the shows and stuff. And I don't think he probably has the grapes to do anything that stands outside of the line that the BBC are pulling. So he will pull the party line. But I think he's a full subscriber of the party line anyway.
Totally. Yeah.
There's never anything that suggests an interest in doing anything that isn't the way that the show is going. So, you know, Doctor Who was going down towards the end of Capaldi. It just plummeted with that fake Doctor, and then it's just not going to get any better. And Big Finish has followed that trajectory, I think.
It's a shame though, Ian, as well, because if you remember, it was sold to us back in 1999. I remember being very excited about the Sirens of Time because you got Peter, Colin, and Sylvester all in the one story, and your imagination was fired up immediately. Think, where could this go? And then you had McGann coming on board around about 2000, didn't you? And we were all wetting ourselves over that. Remember, you got January, February, March, April.
Fabulous,
yeah. You got that. Yeah. I mean, that at the beginning of that year, January, February, March, April, when one would drop through your door, and that was your Doctor Who a month. That was a magical sort of time, really.
And what they did then was they tried to create the atmosphere of the period of that Doctor. So you had the Colin Baker era, the Davison era, or the McCoy era. So it felt like that.
It.
Yeah, but now they're trying
when
to
did
make
that
it
change,
like,
Paul? When did they start to be more modern? Because they were supposed to. It was sold to us as being able to capture the essence of that era.
It's when the new series came back, they started to try and make it more like that, and then they started changing the format and making them 50 minutes, 45 minutes rather than 25 and things like that. You know,
I see.
And things. So they've done lots of experimentation with the format, and it's been quite difficult. And what they've done as well, they've started to make new characters meet old characters. Like River Songs met everybody now. It's all about
that's just so predictably boring.
So all that kind of stuff is just too much, far too much. You know,
it is. Look at this. We're getting loads of comments. Thank you, everybody. Sadeko24 saying, "I love Big Finish back in the day, 2002, 2012. I say we're their heyday." Badria is here. Hi, mate. I love Big Finish, but they just produce too much stuff. There we go. It's impossible to get it all, so everyone is having to cherry pick. Not an ideal business model. I totally agree with that, because that's one of the other reasons I started to think, oh, hang on a minute, this isn't going to be for me, because it came on a month after a little while, you know, and the CDs back then were about $13.99 or something like that. Do you remember? So that was actually quite a lot if you're having one, maybe two a year, because they started doing little specials like the Excellis ones, which were additions and all this sort of stuff. So it's getting too much. But when you start to see, and I remember being at a convention, it was one of the Dwaz ones, and of course they were there, and I was looking at their tables. I was just thinking, where the hell has this come from? Loads and stuff that, you know, like you mentioned the River Song thing. Did that sell? Did the Michelle Ryan one sell?
I think the Michelle Ryan one, they did like one series, I think, but River Song's got like 12, 13 volumes. And I think they did do the Jago and Lightfoot series as well, which is really good. Of course, yeah. And that went up until Lightfoot passed away. So it's kind of but now they're trying to keep it going with the Silurians and Strax and all that in Victorian times with Jago. So it's all get very complicated.
So what were they trying to capitalize on the success of what's happening on television? Then hoping they were going to, because Big Finish to me is only going to sell to fans. So if you alienate that fan base, they're not going to, and that could be part of what's going on now.
I think it could be, because you've got older fans like us who like classic Who, you've got new Who fans, but they're trying to mix them both together, which is not always the best way to go, because we all like certain sections of Doctor Who, don't we? So you want is your niche, don't you? So that's why it works.
Well, I would have thought it would have been a gift, because as soon as Tom comes on board as well, I just want to say hello to Jack there. Colin is deep in with the woke signalling, never frost for him throwing Peter Davison under the bus. We're going to be talking more about that when we're coming on to the fan thing as well, actually talking about thrown under the bus. But you've got, when Tom came on board as well, I got the first series with Louise, and I got that lovely series with Mary, which turned out to be the last time we were ever going to hear Mary. So that's staying on the shelf because it's special, because Mary's in it. And it's interesting. But I would have thought Doctor Who would have been a gift for them, because you've got all these segments. So why are they trying to shoehorn modern stuff and modern agendas, if you like, into stuff that wouldn't have been there with all the older ones?
I don't. I mean, continuity and canon and Doctor Who is a show in itself. I know that, but you kind of when you start mixing it all together, it becomes really complicated, and continuity goes right out the window completely. So it's not much fun for me being OCD. So
yeah, I'm not sure I like that. This could be the other reason as well. But as somebody said in the chat, you go woke, you go broke. Nobody ever believes that in show business, I have to tell you. They think that's just a myth. And yet there's plenty of proof around them, to be quite honest. Atom is saying here, Colin Baker, best stuff was in Doctor Who magazine comics, Big Finish in the Stranger series, outside of the few really great episodes in Doctor Who. And again, Sadeko saying, I think they were in the past woke in a good way, giving the female companion a greater role and even having strong female leads in the Dalek Empire spin-off, which Ian mentioned there.
Yeah, allegedly that was Terry Nation's niece or something, or great niece was in it. Allegedly.
Yeah, I think I think part of it, I know because they're a business, they have to produce in order to raise money to continue. But I think one of the things that made Doctor Who as a viewer and a fan so exciting was the fact that it wasn't on all the time, that you got, I mean, I know in the later years you got about 5 minutes and that was the season gone, but you go back to like the Tom Baker series that we were talking about earlier, and looking for, you knew it was coming back around September time, and you knew it'd be on telly for 5 or 6 months, and then it was gone again. And so you had that period of time without it. You might get a couple of repeats just before it came back again, and there was that build-up of excitement again. This is flooding. If Doctor Who had been like the early days, constantly on 50 or 48 weeks in a year, it would have probably reached peak saturation and probably not continued beyond Troughton or Pertwee. It's the fact it wasn't there all the time, but Big Finish is in your face everywhere, and of course they do other stuff as well.
That's what I'm worried about, Ian, about the spin-offs ideas coming from Disney. If we have lots of them and Doctor Who, it's going to do the same thing. It will saturate the market and bore people to death, and that's the problem. You have to be very careful. Less is more, I think. Less is more. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, less could be more. I mean, when we look at this, thank you to everybody. Jamie's making me laugh here with this one. Maybe Disney will buy Big Finish. Well, that'll be the last nail in the coffin for them then, if they do, won't it? Can you imagine?
Well, I thought with the rebranding, JT, they may have lost a license because Disney want to do their own things with stuff, But
well, from what I can tell, it's interesting you say that, because from what I am aware, of course, RTD is a massive supporter of Big Finish, and it was him that saved them, of course, when the show came back in 2004. There's the big story there, how executive producer Mal Young was asking, what's this Big Finish thing? And Russell put his foot down on that particular one, said, leave them, they're fine, I'll deal with that, it's fine. And we know that they've actually had, in recent years, they've had their license renewed again for another set of years. So this is why I'm trying to say to you here now, yes, all this money's coming along here, but is this enough when you've got that backing? Is that enough to actually? Just a suggestion to everybody, not just the guys here on the show, but is that enough for them to become confident that they're going to be okay for another so many years? It doesn't actually necessarily worry about the figures.
I suppose it depends on, you've not seen the previous year's figures. If they were much the same but then picked up, then hopefully that would have been okay. But I just get concerned about the fact, I think they're going to, the license runs out in 2025. Whether that will continue, I don't know. But they have got other fingers and other pies that you alluded to earlier. They do theatrical things. They were involved with the animations partly as well, I think.
Yes.
Some of that. So maybe they're getting too involved and they're not getting the returns they require,
Well, we do have to bear in mind that allegedly several other companies have been formed. And this is just, I think, the audio side of stuff here. Gore Vidal, it's lovely to see you. Big Finish is expensive to get here in the US. I've read that Dark Eyes is one of the best ones about the 8th Doctor. I couldn't comment on that, maybe. But it's interesting, isn't it? Because I always said that after a certain while, I think Big Finish was more popular in America than it was here in the UK.
Well, from my point of view, I think it was quite popular in the UK initially, up to Zagreus. I agree with that, because I think that stung everybody. I think in terms of the quality of that one, it was a bit disappointing with the climax in Neverland, etc., and all that kind of stuff. But
the rushed climax as well. You could tell it was rushed, couldn't you, Paul? It was a shame.
And when the series came back and they had to get out of the Divergent Universe and get rid of carers and all that, and all kind of stuff, all got a bit complicated and wasn't.
I'm not sure why they had to do that, but actually now you're talking about that, and we're talking about this, guys. It's just clicked to me what you're saying there. They were trying to match it into what was to come on telly.
Yeah.
So the writing was on the wall then, wasn't it? Oh, we've got to bring the Eighth Doctor back into the universe now, into our universe now, so that he's ready for whatever is going to be coming with Eccleston, etc., etc., etc. Yeah, we've got that. Stephen, hello, Stephen. It's lovely to see you. Most of the old stuff is not on CD anymore, and you can only get them digitally. Yes, I've heard that.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's because they can't stock them in a big warehouse or something, because of course that's expensive to do that as well. So
but there's like we said, there's so many of them. You need like about 5 or 6 football pitches to store them all, I think.
Yeah, we have to also say to them that, of course, they inspired a couple of the TV shows, didn't they? That Spare Parts inspired that second series. What's it called? The Age of Steel.
That's right. Yeah,
and Dalek was inspired by Jubilee. Oh, my memory's working here. Look at this.
Right. Well done. Good. Well done. You. Well done. Yeah.
Thank you. And wasn't there a third?
I don't know if there's a third, but obviously the human nature was from the book, wasn't it?
From the books. Yeah. And of course, they started dramatizing some of the books as well, didn't they? The New Adventures. So that was another line, another spin-off there. Ooh,
and they've done lost stories and things like that, and lost scripts, that kind of thing. And they've done so many things they said they weren't going to do. And please don't get me started on the recasting of doctors who are no longer with us.
Well, you know my theory on that. I think that's a whole load of absolute
There's one thing that irritates me no end. There's one, I think it's called The Annihilators. There's a John Pertwee one. I think there's only they had John Pertwee in it, the third Doctor and the second Doctor and Jamie in it, and the only actor that's playing the original character is Fraser Hines. All the rest are voice artists. It's like,
well, what's the point?
What's the point?
I mean, there's a point to that, is there? I mean, how must Fraser Hines have thought? I mean, Fraser Hines, Jamie, the first, he used to be the only male companion to wear a skirt, but now, obviously, with he's now the first and not the only one.
But
he's not going to be the last, Ian.
No, full-blown
But I mean, how must he have felt with that? He must have felt that he was betraying them, mustn't he? And I just, and as a third Doctor diehard, I couldn't listen to anything that wasn't Pertwee. I just couldn't do it. I'd feel like I was betraying my childhood. Can't do it.
Yeah, I think the trouble is, I spoke to other fans who listen to them, and I find it really hard to tune into it because I'm really aware it's not that actor. The impersonations are very good, but they're just not quite right. I can hear
it's still an impersonation, Paul, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And it's never sat with me. You don't recast our beloved leads. Once they're gone, they're gone.
Yeah.
You know, and I just don't understand it. What's the point in doing those whole things and then charging whatever they're charging for you to have it when it's not even the original cast? It's like, no disrespect at all, but they cast Liz's daughter to play Sarah Jane. Why?
And Caroline John's daughter, woman, Liz and stuff like that. Yeah.
I mean, I don't get it. Gary's saying they regret their choice of name now. Probably Gary, because all of us are adding certain things. Sorry, Paul.
I was going to say, God bless, I want Tom to live forever. But when you eventually go to that great Time Lord Place in the Sky, I think they're going to get Joan Coleshaw to play the Doctor after that. Which please don't do that. Please don't do that. You know.
Well, somebody mentioned in our Tom Baker shows, John Coleshaw doesn't sound like Tom now, do they? So I'm inclined to believe our subscribers here. Jack is saying the ruination of the show filters down to everything. Doctor Who, Big Finish included. The brand has been irreparably damaged. I can't argue with you, Jack. It is becoming a little bit sort of embarrassing. And Alien, I've never listened to Big Finish stuff. I usually like seeing what's going on instead of being told what's going on. Yeah, that's the thing with audio, isn't it? You have to play it. It certainly doesn't. Simon is here saying, I really don't notice woke, or if I do, I shrug it off. I'm glad you can do that, but I see it all the time now, and I'm not prepared to, quite frankly. I'm prepared to call it out now, saying, stop lecturing to the bloody public. We can make our own decisions. We are not all 2 years old. And then, of course, Garbage is saying, I will never forgive Big Finish for what they did to James Dreyfus. Totally agree, and I won't either. That was a shocking incident of just clambering on a misinformed bandwagon, and they still haven't, as far as I'm aware, and allegedly they still haven't apologised to Mr. Dreyfus, and that's disgraceful. The way they treated Mr. Dreyfus, shocking, absolutely shocking.
Can I say I actually quite liked Mr. Dreyfus's performance as the Master? He's very, very good.
Do you know what? I'm in a quandary with that, Paul, because I want to buy them on CD because Jim's in them. James is in them, but I don't want the money going to Big Finish.
I know. I got it before he was cancelled. So But I do think he's very, very good in it because he's in some of the David Bradley First Doctor ones have done, because there's the one with the Master with the First Doctor. But yeah.
Yes, there again, it's a recast. I mean, that didn't sit with me in the TV show. The recasting of that. Once you can, I'll turn a blind eye once, but several times over, no. Atom is saying here, yes, that was horrible what they did to Dreyfus. It bloody was, and it was purely for ideological reasons. Totally, which is part of what we talk about on these shows, because it's everywhere, and it's now in the blooming show as well. Jack is also saying it's such a shame John Pertwee didn't get the chance to record any more Doctor Who audiobooks. It is really, but stay with us on this channel, and if you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe, because as part of our Sound of Who's It, look, this one's already excited. As part of our Sound of Who's It, Paul and I are going to be looking at the Ghost of N-Space and the other one, the Paradise of Death, and reviewing them.
Yeah. God help us. Yeah. I'm interested in your take on that as well, you being a John Pertwee fan, being your Doctor, because they're interesting, to say the least.
Oh. They are interesting.
No spoilers. Yeah.
They are in the pipeline, everybody watching. They are in the pipeline. I'm not going to tell you when they're going to be on, because I've got to listen to them. I have to say, I started listening to episode 1 the other day and I couldn't get through it, so I wasn't in the right frame of mind. But they're coming to us at some point.
Yeah,
anyway.
Look out for Jeremy.
Oh, stop that. You always have to remind me about blooming Jeremy. Oh, he's getting... Meddling Funk, apparently. Actually, not allegedly they dropped James Dreyfus for his views, didn't they? No, they dropped him because all James Dreyfus did was sign a particular very reasonable letter, which a lot of people did in support of the author J.K. Rowling. And basically it was saying, the whole thing about it was we need a discussion about this whole issue. And we all know the issue we're talking about. And it's still raging on today. And Mr. Dreyfus lent, as well, many other people did, put his signature to it. And then all the usual, we're coming to them soon, the fan element as well came out. This is disgusting. And what BF did was very just simply didn't use him again and removed his images and reduced his name and all this sort of stuff. And if you want to see James's take on this, there are various other Tube of Who shows that will do that for you. We might actually put them in the description for you if you want to look at them. But it's ridiculous. It's that whole cancel culture, everybody. It was just ridiculous what's going on there, and it was all silly. It was just silly and childish and pandering to a very big-mouthed minority. Oh goodness me! What's Atom now saying? I'm going town back for a bit and enjoy the show. Head's killing me. Just going to lay here with my meds and enjoy the commentary. Oh well, I hope you're all right. I hope you're okay. I hope you're feeling all right, mister. Yes, do that. So is Bedweir saying one release a month for $14.99 was fine. Now at least one box set a month for $29.99 or $34.99 if you what? Now it's at least one box set a month for $29.99 or $34.99 if like me you want. So I take it there's more than one CD in these, Paul.
Yeah, you get 3, 4 depending on the length of the story and obviously the cost as well. And some are slightly cheaper if you get downloads, but yeah, they're extremely expensive. I have an arrangement with a friend of mine, and I'll leave it at that.
I suppose many people do. Atom, you certainly can. It's whosviews1@gmail.com, Atom. Whosviews1.
Amazing.
Yes, do send it in and we'll have a look at it. Thank you. whosviews1@gmail.com. And that's for anybody that wants to send me anything to do with the show or anything that you think for the show. So yes, at this point, we're talking about the news, if you want to call it that, the story that broke on Friday afternoon about Big Finish. This was their balance sheet as of the 30th of September 2023. And yes, this set elements of fandom alight with interest. Could this be the beginning of the end for Big Finish? Are they soon to become Big Finished? It's going to be I don't know.
They're not a financial year, are they? Financial year being to just beginning very, very, very beginning of January, and they're almost like their interim accounts being September, which makes you wonder why they've had those drawn up. Because I mean, it costs money to have accounts drawn up, doesn't it?
Yeah,
so
it does.
And quite a lot these days. From what a mate of mine's telling me, accountants are bleeding you through the nose. Troy, nice to see you. Thanks for popping in. Anyway, go and have watch us on playback. Go on, Ian. Sorry.
No, that was just it, really. I mean, you're absolutely right. It's not cheap to have your accounts done. Bigger the organisation, more there is to go through, longer time it takes, more it costs. So to have interim ones done, which these must be, is interesting, I think.
I think if it was become a past tense Big Finished, I think that they've had a good innings. I mean, that's nearly 25 years they've had doing it, and I think that's fabulous for any company to produce this amount of stuff. And like I said, I will at least say 50% is quite good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to see what happens with them, obviously, because they might have to look at. I wonder if anybody's actually brokered the idea of reducing the range and going back to basics like they did with one every other month or representing the Doctor. I mean, it's great for the actors because, of course, they're all getting blooming work, aren't they? And I mean, the old gag, Paul, that is now true, isn't it? Doctor Who's our pension. But when you've got these themes coming in from the likes of the audios, it is.
I mean,
hello, Danny Ringo's here. Hello.
I'm all for supporting a Sylvester and Colin and Peter and all that kind of stuff because and Tom, in the retirement, fantastic stuff. But I just think they have oversaturated the market. There's too much there, and I think they've got a little bit greedy. I think that's the problem.
I think Paul, what you also have to remember, you've got your own pension to look forward to as well.
As well, of course, yes. Yeah.
You've got to start thank you very much. Well, it is, yeah. But you know what? I keep saying this to the youngsters as well. And if you are younger now, if you're under the age of 24 now, make sure you've got a decent pension. Because I was reading last year in one of the papers that apparently your retirement age may be 85.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're living longer. So that means you can work longer. And by God, as we know from our experience on this panel, they'll make you work until you drop.
They will.
Look into a pension, kids. Yeah. I want to say hello there to Denny Ring. It's nice to see you. I like the old Big Finish when Gary used to run it before 2000. I think we do as well. I think we're all agreed on that. It went a bit odd. Wasn't perfect. Oh, and Jack is saying to us, I genuinely like those Pertwee audios. John's voice through those sells anything. Certainly did.
John's good in it. I'll give him that. I'll give you that, Jack. Yeah, I'll give you that. Yeah.
Timescales was there as well, so hello to the timescales. Right, Jack is answering me as well here. It's hard to care if Big Finish ends or not. The quality just isn't there. That's saying what you guys are saying. It's expensive. Yeah. It feels like it's run its course. If it has, and I'm only saying if, I'm not wishing them anything or other, but if, as a speculative amount, 25 years for a business is a hell of a good run, isn't it, when they've been doing all this sort of stuff,
Yeah.
And it isn't, and we know with physical media, Paul, as well, it hasn't been easier for them, from cassette and CD to CD, hugely expensive by what Bedouin is saying, and download as well. I mean, it's all changed so much.
They've been trying to push for download for a while, but all the older fans like myself are clamoring for physical media, so we've kept that going, I think, and it is very costly. But I think if they did stop, say they stopped next year, and that was it, you maybe appreciate some of their back catalogue more because you're not being swamped by constant material. That's the problem.
I can only talk from my experience of them because, as we've established here, I stopped buying them quite a while ago. But I do like some of the early Colin Baker's ones, the Apocalypse Element, the Marianne Conspiracy, the Spectre of Lanyon Moore. I like the Spare Parts for Davison. I like that one as well. There's quite a few of those original ones I like, and occasionally I'll go back and listen to them now, but I'm no interest in any of the new stuff. And when people like yourselves are coming on and everybody in the chat is coming on and saying, well, this is what's happening with it now, no, I'm not going to. Anyway, we've got all that. Richard says he's got a solution. Big Finish simply need to produce multiple box sets about our biggest heroine, Doom.
Haven't they done that already?
Yeah, well, wasn't one. They did do a Doom episode, didn't they?
Yeah, and they shoehorned in Paul McGann and people like that, and Patrick Troughton's Doctor and things like that. Oh dear God, yeah.
And Jamie's making an interesting idea. Don't they have a load of Tom stuff they've recorded over the years as they plan on drip feeding, releasing? What will happen to all that? Well, they have, and Tom's given his permission, of course, to release that when and if they want to. So there's a lot there. I mean, this is all speculative from all of us, but it's interesting as fans because this is what we do, hasn't it? This is what we do. Timescales is saying Big Finish has been pre-selling Fugitive Doctor story with Joe Martin and Call Me Master with Sacha Dhawan for over a year with no release date, which seems odd. I think who the hell? That's not going to sell in its hundreds, is it? Is it?
Well, to give you a niche, they did a Eric Roberts Master box set as well, which is a weird thing to do because I don't think everyone's clamoring for that. It's just some weird choices, but just too many things.
Well, it is, isn't it? Crimpling to the Bloom is here with us as well as Peace. Hello both. Again, it's tiny when you point there. They've saturated. There's a lot of product basically, and that's a lot of work for them as well to actually write, produce, get in the can, as it were, get on the disc, whatever you call the equivalent of that is.
And subject to back
very
catalogue, I
fascinating.
think Tom's up to series 12. He's done more series now on audio than he has on TV. It's ridiculous.
Timescales is here. Hope Big Finish can survive. It would suck if they ended. I don't think anybody in Britain would really notice, though, to be quite. As I was saying to you before you came in, I think Big Finish has always been more popular in America than it has been here, and that's just my personal take of seeing things, because I always see people out of the UK, especially in America, commenting on Big Finish, and we want this, and we want this, and we want this. I hardly see anybody from Britain. It's a bit like the TV show. It's just not.
I mean, I think to praise them, I think they did a really good job of Colin originally, and kind of revitalized his Doctor and gave Colin another chance to do more and do what he wanted to do, which was brilliant. But getting McGann was fabulous. I think they've done some really good things, but they've just got a bit too full of themselves, I think, allegedly.
Oh, I think you could be onto something there. David is asking, how have they got a 2 million debt burden? It baffles me. And again, timescales, I think when they ended the monthly series with the original Doctors, it turned kind of, what's the word? Yeah, exactly. Pete, let's get physical. It's yours to hold. Yeah. I mean,
they can't go back and edit it later, can they? Because if they do something that's non-physical media, and then 10 years later or 5 years later, or let's face it, with the TQIA lot, it could change next week when they add another color to the flag, and all of a sudden something on that download is non-PC anymore, so they edit it, so it's not the original anymore, is it? Whereas if it's physical media, like we've said before, they can't touch it.
Well,
I can just agree with what someone said in the chat there about John Hurt was fabulous as the War Doctor on audio, and they did the same with him. They got a voice artist to do him after he passed away, and Jonathan Carley, who plays John Hurt or the War Doctor, is really, really good, and he sounds really like a young John Hurt. So it's an early War Doctor as he's first regenerated in Night of the Doctor, and it's really, really, really well done. Partly because I think Louise Jameson directed him and gave him some wonderful acting lessons on performing on audio, which is a fantastic thing for Louise to do to make that work.
It is. And if you're going to learn anything about the art, it's Louise Jameson that you turn to, isn't it? Really, I mean, who else? I mean, what a teacher. And understands her craft beautifully. Miss Louise Jameson does, absolutely fantastic. Well, anyway, that was that. Well, I mean, we had to talk about that because that's the question, isn't it? What's going to happen with Big Finish? Now, I'm sure it's a story we'll come back to here on Who's Views on Headlines as well. We're going to be watching that with interest as well. If you are buying the Big Finish, just keep buying them. There's plenty for you there if you can get them, and if you're into them, well done.
I wish them well. That's all I'm saying. I wish them well.
Yes. I mean, well, let's see if they've got all this as part of their plan. Let's see let's see what happens there. But we will be keeping an eye on that, as will all of Fandom, and that leads us to our next headline tonight, of course, because it's all about us, fans, and where Fandom is right now. And this leads us to a nice little story that was sent to me by Tony. Thank you, Tony, for this. Sent me, Doctor Who fans flock to town for Time Lord glimpse from the BBC News website. Yes, all two of them flocked down to Penarth the other day to see Ncuti Gatwa on location. Doctor Who fans have flocked to a market town in Hertfordshire after reported sightings of lead actor Ncuti Gatwa. Oh, this is Hertfordshire, not Penarth. Filming for an episode is underway in Leominster, wherever that is, with eagle-eye fans and residents eventually getting a glimpse of Gatwa, who plays the 15th today incarnation of TV's Time Lord. The titular star was said to have been spotted at the town's OK Diner, a 1950s themed restaurant. We said it was going to be the 1950s last week. It was pretty obvious, wasn't it, in those pictures? Which seemed to mesh with reports of a recent casting call telling actors they would be dressed in period attire. Doctor Who fan Scott Price, hello Scott, nice to see you, said it was a massive privilege to witness filming on Thursday. Bless. Not put off by miserable rainy conditions, Mr. Price told the BBC he had spent the last 2 days at filming locations. Goodness me. Obviously, I'm a big fan of Doctor Who, he said. I've been watching it since Matt Smith's 2012 Christmas special. God. And I have not stopped watching it since. You really should, you've got to get out every now and then. This is my first time ever seeing Doctor Who filming, but wow, it's so exciting. God love him. Okay. Doctor Who fanatic and Leominster resident Martha Davis. She was also there. She's 18. wanted to catch the Doctor's return, telling the BBC nothing ever really happens in Leominster, so it's lovely for something to happen like this. I live like 10 minutes away, maybe even closer, so it's a big thing to happen. Explaining her love for Doctor Who, Miss Davis said, "It's a great community. It just feels so welcoming, and the writing is just great. Russell T. Davis is a great writer, so it just feels like you are part of the atmosphere whenever you are watching it." I'm glad they had a great time at Leominster, watching the filming of this, both of them. Nice to see you. I'm glad you enjoyed that. Please do like and subscribe if you come across this. That'd be great.
How does Martha, who lives in Leominster, flock to Leominster?
Well, as I say, all two of them flocked there to see the...
Already, it was more just of a casual drift, surely.
You know what these media types, it was so popular, especially with the BBC right now. It was so popular. There were thousands, and yet they only got two to say hello to them. But this is the thing here. Let's talk about this now, everybody, and let's talk about it honestly in an open way. She's talking about the Doctor Who fandom here. It's a great community. It feels welcoming. Is it, though? Is it really? And this takes me on to our subject for the main headline this evening. As far as I can see, Doctor Who fandom isn't what it was, everybody, and it's a mess, and it has been since a certain announcement in 2017. It wasn't this bad, was it, guys?
No, it's funny, hasn't it? It's always been a bit funny, don't you think, Paul? It's always been a bit funny. But
can you elaborate? Can you define funny?
Oh, do you remember when the message boards started up, which was the early social media, wasn't it? With things like Outpost Gallifrey with Sean Lyon and things like that running it, and you would get online spats, and occasionally people would be kicked out and things like that. There was like huge, or it seemed huge, kerfuffles with people like that when things like that happen.
Oh, that's a good word. Say that again, kerfuffle.
Kerfuffle. But as soon as you got your Twitter and things like that, where it was instant, then, because obviously going back to the 80s, we said to each other just before we started with with the fanzines, it was, if you ever got a spat, it was via the letters page of fanzines, which was just like hitting somebody with a kipper 1.5 weeks after they said something that offended you, and about another week and a half later they responded, and it was just like, well, if you can keep awake and remember what the hell they're on about.
The good old days.
You wouldn't in those back in our day. You wouldn't bear a grudge. I remember if you met in the local group in the pub, you'd have a conversation about something, and if you'd like one story and not the story the other person liked, let's say it was Nightmare of Eden, but no one would say you were mandrelphobe or a mandrelist if you didn't like Nightmare of Eden. It's bizarre.
You wouldn't try to get the person kicked out of future group meeters, would you? You wouldn't try and effectively cancel them. Whereas, no, you can't come to this pub anymore. It's our pub. You can't. There was none of that. It's because people then weren't nappy-wearing snowflakes, which is what a lot of them are now, because they can't cope with an opinion that's diverse from their own. So they have to shut you down. I mean, like you were mentioning earlier about the J.K. Rowling thing and how they'll react to people. If they stopped and thought for a minute, they would hate the fact that J.K. Rowling is actually canon in Doctor Who, because in the Shakespeare Code, he referenced her right at the very end. So she's
but look at who wrote that episode as well.
Exactly.
Lovely Gareth.
So if they don't like it, they can stick it up the Quidditch. I don't care. But
but that's the thing, as you said, it's open to discussion, and you can have a discussion and debate, and that's what it boils down to. There's no room for discussion, to analyse what you're talking about, to have an honest, open, mature debate.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it, Paul? And this is what I want to get onto now, guys, as well, because Sadeko24 is saying, in my experience in fandom, spats went on wherever. Do you know what, though? The difference was that I remember, yes, you did have spats, but actually, I don't remember them going on forever as much as they do now, because you would have a drink and you would agree to disagree. And that whole argument seems to have disappeared now, that ability to agree to disagree. And what I'm concerned about now that is coming into fandom, now we showed this slide before, but this is another element that I'm going to bring it back in before. How is fandom now reflecting where we are when it comes to society? because there's a lot of labeling. There is targeting. We've always talked about you're branded, you're an ist, you're a phobe, you're an ot, whatever derogatory term it is, to try and get you to be shamed. And the fact is that those insults now are just that, they're just insults. They've lost all power because we've been called everything now for so long in our fandom. And it just, I also want to ask you guys, and there's something for you to think about while I show this slide, and you in the chat, is aspects of the BBC, have they nurtured this in fandom? Because we've had this since 2017. It's even more so now. And now we've got various people coming out who are associated with the shows, jumping on those bandwagons and talking to us and blocking us. You've got people like producers and casting directors and writers blocking people all the time because they won't have the same opinion. Now, that's not the fandom I know. Look at this slide that I mentioned in here as well. This is what it's all about. First non-white TARDIS team. What an incredible day for progress. Was it? This very week, we had this on the BBC. Now, come on, the BBC social media. Goodness me, that really needs to be looked at. I mean, who's the social media for, who viewers? Is it for the play school generation? I don't know. But this was what they put out, one of the things they put out this week. And they actually said, what was the common theme? What do these four have in? Look what came back.
What?
Obsessed. These people are obsessed. The actual correct answer was they were all wearing velvet.
Yeah,
but that's what we have to deal with now. This obsession. Where the hell has this come from? And how did it get into fandom?
Part of it's due to mental illness, I think. Sorry, it becomes an obsession to the point where they can't see things objectively or realistically or have any other view. It's an obsession, it's an addiction. And, you know, addictions are, in a lot of ways, depending on what you're addicted to, mental illnesses. And I think it is a bit of a mental illness. There's a few people that are running free out there that in a slightly more balanced society would probably be institutionalized, I think.
Possibly, actually. I mean, we've always had elements of fandom there, but we dealt with that, didn't we? I remember going to conventions and stuff and meeting other fans that had conditions. Let's try to say that. But do you know what? We were Doctor Who fans. We didn't care. Yeah. And if somebody said something daft, as I would usually do, or my mates would usually do, oh, shut up, and you get on with it. But now you'd be instantly cancelled, wouldn't you? You'd have your entire life thrown out. Jack is making a point here. Just look at the flag-laden social media profiles of those who love the current era of the show, most of whom were responding to that Four Doctors picture there. Let's just say Doctor Who now has a very special audience.
Well, you just have to look at GT. You just have to look at the official podcast they do after the airing episode. Look
I'd rather not.
The combination of panelists on that represent what we're talking about. I'm still a bit flabbergasted about no one said velvet jackets. That's ridiculous. So.
No. Well, I think a couple of people did eventually, but I noticed that they were further down because everybody went on, as I said there, with the immediate assumptions, blah, 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 blah. And I thought that's what we're dealing with now. Yeah, and that's why they're pushing it. And you see it more and more. And when you become, as we are now, we see this all the time. It's all about that agenda, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, the news that Yasmin Finney is coming back into the show, they're wetting themselves over this. I mean, it doesn't matter that Bonnie Langford is apparently coming back to return and film more Doctor Who in around about the end of March, beginning of April. Could they be reshoots? Or is that for another series? Who knows? But we do know she's due back on set. That's been found out.
I know. Spoilers come up. I know she's meant to be in the finale of Shooty's first series from location.
Yeah, but they're on series 2 now. They're filming series 2.
Yeah.
So
but
could you be doing reshoots?
There could be reshoots because they're getting near to broadcast time as well. Yeah. So
it is. I mean, this, but that didn't gain any momentum with them. But Yasmin Finney. You know, lots of press there. Richard is saying debate is the death of cults. That's why they want to shut us down. That's exactly why we're doing headlines. Because absolutely, we are here to encourage that discussion from all points of view. Because we do have to look at this. You've got to talk about all this stuff. Otherwise, you live in a dictatorship, which sometimes I worry is where we're going.
When you stop talking about things, and this is relevant to a wider scale of subjects as well, but when you stop talking about things, bad things happen. And, you know, it's when countries stop talking to each other about problems, that's when wars happen. and it's right down to a smaller scale here. And the current production team gives so much platform to this tiny fraction of society that they have a falsely inflated idea of how big a group they are and how much of a say they have. And ultimately it's not reflective of society. It's not reflective of the audience. It will very soon be reflective of the audience because it will show in the ratings, but by then it will be too late and they'll have killed it. But there we go.
It's yeah, I know what you're saying there. But you also said earlier, Ian, as well, that you were saying along the lines of as well that you can't placate these people.
No, you can't.
And yet we do have, and we've seen this, haven't we? The Starbies, for example, the Starbies, for crying out loud, with all that personal pronoun nonsense and all this, and how the being trans saved the universe. Oh, for heaven's sake, give us a science fiction story. But one person that has, of course, recently discovered that people will turn on her is Georgia Tennant. Now, Georgia Tennant, of course, is quite a showbiz liberal. I will say that for her. She is quite left, as most people in showbiz are. But this is getting to my point here, because not one of them has come to her defense on this particular issue, because, of course, Mrs. Tennant tweeted a particular tweet. Now, I don't want to get into the politics of all this or what's going on, because, quite frankly, I have never actually understood that whole issue. I don't understand it at all. They tried to teach it me in school when I was a kid, back then in the 80s, and I was totally confused because it did not compute. Why would you do that? But Doctor Who fans, 1 minute they're loving it. Certain Doctor Who fans, 1 minute they were loving her because herself and her husband, it was all TERFs are bad, trans rights, blah, blah, blah. Oh, we love the Tennants. Oh, my God, they're all fabulous, they're fabulous. And then she tweeted something about the unfortunate material that's going on in the real world. And they had her. Unfollowing moots defending Georgia Tennant. And I'm not even going to try arguing with y'all. All people were trying to do, we don't say y'all in Britain, by the way, thank God. All people were trying to do was educate her. That smacks more of the whole brainwashing element. You will think like us. And get her to do one simple thing that could make a difference. And she argued back and she blocked people. She was immature. Now that says it all about these people we're dealing with, doesn't it? You can't argue back with them. You're not allowed to argue back because you're the one in the wrong. They won't come out of that whole mindset they've got that, there might be other opinions in the world. And there's a lot of bandwagon jumping in Doctor Who fandom now, isn't it? And then a lot of us are ostracized. This came about as well. Reminder, if you support Georgia Tennant, Michael Sheen, or Neil Gaiman, you are not welcome on my account. Being neutral equals siding with the oppressor. Oh, dear. Yeah, exactly. Maybe Georgia Tennant should spend less time searching her name on here and more time educating herself on the ongoing... it's been more than 3 months and 75 years. No, blah, blah, blah. Excuse. She claimed to be learning and researching and yet to use her platform. But maybe it doesn't even cross their mind. She maybe have learned and researched and actually come to a different viewpoint, because that's not allowed, is it?
I love the fact they're calling her immature. That's interesting.
Yeah. And then it turned out that they were celebrating this. The platform, both Georgia and Tennant and Neil Gaiman both left X, Twitter, and yes, she did. Georgia Tennant, just like her father. Because, of course, Peter Davison left when he was called a misogynist and a bigot and sexist and all that, when he dared to disagree with the casting of a female doctor and implied in a wonderful way, this is going to affect the character. Now, that's a man that also knows his craft and knows his art. And by God, he was right, wasn't he? He was absolutely right. But they hounded him off, just like they've now hounded his daughter off X for having a different viewpoint, Paul.
And the thing about it is it just comes across as bullying. And when has that ever been appropriate? Bullying someone, whether it's online or whatever, it's just not appropriate. It's just simply bullying, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, well, it is bullying, but they wouldn't see it, would they? They wouldn't see that as bullying. They're talking about, I mean, we've had this from people who are actually running the show. You will think like us. We've covered this whole thing about, if you vote this way, you're a murderer. if you don't think like us, you're a bigot or a murderer, and you're all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
These are not good role models in my eyes for very impressionable young people who are not getting a decent education in the United Kingdom.
All I can say, GT, is that's just simply tough. That's all I'm saying.
But it is frightening, isn't it? It is frightening here. I just don't understand where it's coming up. I mean, fandom it's different to what I remember it now. I mean, there's also a lot of backstabbing going on. There's a lot of lies going on. There's a lot of rumors going on. What's happened? I mean, okay, we had certain things like that. Do you think it's because of the introduction of social media now? Do you think it's because people are a little bit more angry now, fish face?
I think it's not helped it, because people, like I said before, you kind of you can say anything. You're anonymous. You have a handle. You have whether you have an avatar, whatever you have to be hiding behind. You're not being yourself. So it's easy to make comments and be snarky and sarcastic and really smart, or so you think. But you're not showing your face. You're not showing your name. You're hiding behind this so you don't get any flack. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, because I would like to see how these people actually function in the real world. I mean, if they've got work and if they're going to work, and how they will function there, because, you're going to have to mix with people who are of our ages and who are actually a little bit more sensible, usually, although we're not all, of course. There's an awful lot that's wrong with all of us as well. But you would actually listen to somebody else's opinion. And, I've always said that Doctor Who lacks the adults back in the room now because they're too busy pandering to the modern audience, which quite frankly does not exist. Stephen's making a very valid point here. You can't disagree with the fans. If you don't agree, you're the enemy and you shouldn't watch it anymore. And you know what, Stephen? That's why people don't, isn't it? That's why the viewing figures go down. Because I've been told many times, oh, well, stop moaning about it. Don't watch it. Well, I don't. I switched it off.
And this is the argument we've had, both Ian and I've had on these headline shows about we want to like it. We're fans. Why is it not for us as well?
Yeah, why is it not accessible for everyone?
Yeah.
Whilst claiming to be inclusive.
Yeah. And yes.
With what they were doing to Georgia Tennant, basically deplatforming, isn't it? And it's what a lot of the universities, specifically, like everything else, it always started in America. If there's somebody coming in to speak at a university and they don't like it, doesn't follow their particular student union politics, they will protest and eventually get that person deplatformed and not allowed to speak. And ultimately that's saying we don't want to hear an alternative point of view. And that means they want to remain ignorant and stupid because they will go through life thinking that they are unchallengeable and that they are always right. And then they will hit a real world scenario where they are utterly wrong and they will crash on their ass and probably die on their ass. And to be honest, the world won't be a worse place as a result of it. But it's Georgia Tennant. I felt really bad for Peter Davison, especially as Janet Fielding, I think, was primarily instrumental in hounding him off. But Georgia allegedly, yes. But Georgia Tennant, I feel less sympathy for because she was throwing the hate out to the people that weren't aligned with her prior, and now it's come back on her. So I can't feel any sympathy for her. She's reaped what she's sowed. She's fucked about. She's found out.
I must admit, Ian, I am a little bit like that because I was on the receiving end of a particular tweet about this when I put a certain thing and I was questioning and was instantly blocked, as many of these people in show business will do now. If you do not have the same opinion, they'll block you. Also, the fact is that if you are working on this particular show, you shouldn't be blocking your fans. You should actually be just ignoring it, or you should actually, answer them or question or have a discussion with them. But no, they just block you now, don't they? And yet they'll still want our money. They still want us watching the show. They still want us to talk about it on things like this because it gains publicity for their product, their show. But it is very hypocritical. So I'm with you there. It says, well, I didn't like the way it was done, but at some point, as I've said there, they will turn. They eat their own.
It reminds me of, do you remember that episode, that Tennant episode, the Sontaran stratagem with the boy genius?
Oh, yeah.
And he had a tantrum over pronunciation with the doctor. That is fandom as we stand. It's that kind of attitude, that sort of spoilt child, spoilt brat type attitude, allegedly.
Well, I think you're right, and it's ironic, isn't it, that the lead character in that was played by David Tennant, who and they were starting to get at him about this because of what his missus was saying, and because she wasn't bending the knee as a lot of people now do, or are expected to do, and she was sticking to her research or however what she put that. They turned nasty on her. So how's that going to affect him? And as I say, it was just ridiculous. 1 minute, oh, we love her, we love him, oh, because they're agreeing with us, and it's all cozy and pink and fluffy. Now we're going to get them. They turned into piranhas. Raymond's making an interesting point here, guys. I think RTD is deliberately playing to the ex-Twitter crowd and that, what's it called, toctic. He's more interested in clicks than actual viewers watching the series. They're definitely pandering, aren't they, Raymond, to this new modern audience, which is mythical. But they all do it. Show business is poison. I'm sorry, but it is. It's poison. It's one of the worst industries to get, and then it filters down into every other industry. It's just.
JT, there was somebody that I know, not very well, don't know them particularly well, but they Paul Cornell put out a request for some footage from some convention that he'd spoken at, and it was a while back, so not the smartphone point it and click age, talking about handheld video camera age,
really big chunky ones.
Yeah, and those are the ones. And this chap I know, he said he had some footage, and Cornell was like, right, what I want you to do is, and he told him to F off. And he wasn't going to do it because he was one of the many people that Cornell blocked from one of the watch-alongs a couple of years ago. And he said, if I wasn't good enough for you then, I'm not good enough for you now. Basically, shove it. You reap what you sow.
Yeah.
I've never spoke about this before, and I won't mention the particular person, but let's just say that the particular person disappointed me. I'm not quite sure how we got hooked up on, I think it was the Book of Face that we hooked up on. I'm not quite sure how it was. And I think it was either last year or the year before. And I knew the name, but it didn't quite settle in for a few days who the particular person was. Anyway, I shared an article I had read, by the way, by a certain author who's been blacklisted. And we all know who that is. It's GR. I don't care. I agree with what he says, so I don't care. And I shared an article, but because he was writing for a particular magazine, this person who's still involved with the show today came back and said, why are you sharing that? That's a poisonous magazine, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, the title doesn't matter to me. The article's what mattered, and it's common sense. So I thought other people might be interested in reading it. And that's what it's all about in my eyes, isn't it? To say, well, I thought this was interesting. Do you think it's interesting? And if you do, tell me. And if you don't tell me, and have I missed something or am I whatever? And you have a discussion. No, he came back and called me for everything, including the horrible C word I don't like, the 4-letter one, and then instantly blocked me. And I thought, how bloody judgmental are you? Just because you've jumped on that bandwagon that says this particular magazine, which apparently certain London elites won't like because it's deemed right wing, when it's actually sort of centre left, centre right, middle groundish, with a few different points of view. I just thought that's ridiculous, and that's coming from the production team. And then, as I say, we've seen other people coming from the production team in all aspects, haven't we? Blocking other people because they're not. And this is your fan base. These are people that are paying for your products in one way or the other, and they're also license fee payers.
Yeah.
It winds me up. I don't know what.
That's the thing. The license fee is it's compulsory, really. However you look at it, so it's a kind of a tax, and we're taxpayers, so we should be looked at as taxpayers paying for a service that we're not getting. So.
I've said before, isn't it? It's about time the BBC started calling everybody shareholders.
Yeah.
Let's use the business vernacular. Let's use what it is, and because it's going up again in a couple of months' time as well. The other thing that I've shown this slide before, I'm keeping it on the file, and I'm going to show it again because recently as well, somebody was allowed back onto X and Twitter, and this person was the one that gave out the particular death threat recently. It was this: I am so unbelievably angry at what is happening in the UK. The bigotry against trans people is disgusting. I won't be happy until all of these Tories are dead in the ground. This is not a safe space for Conservatives. I hope you all hang, he said. Now, he was barred, and apparently he was barred off that platform for life. But this week he's back and celebrating that particular fact, the very confused young man. But that sort of tweet that's allowed. And yet, if you challenge somebody who's calling themselves transgender because it's somebody in a wig and a dress, you are blocked. The common sense is not there anymore, is it? It's just, it has gone out. It's all about this ideology that's come in from somewhere. And yet, you know, that ties in again with the role model to what a certain showrunner was saying at these award ceremonies a couple of years ago and mouthing off about that. So I think this very impressionable and very confused young man, God love him, has obviously heard that and thought, that's okay to say. I'm all right to say that because I'm going to be in with them. And I'm sure he very much is.
Could you just imagine, you know, we've had MPs of both flavours from main parties murdered in very recent memory. Could you imagine if some suitably disturbed individual who spends most of their time on social media goes in and tops a Tory MP and says, well, I saw a certain showrunner saying this, so I've gone and done it. You know, because it's not that far of a leap. If you're spewing that much hate, then it's not, and let's face it, they are very easily triggered. So, you know, they're spewing the hate 1 minute and then they go out and do something stupid the next because they aren't thinking straight and they're probably not capable of thinking straight. And then it all comes out and the investigation, what made you do this? What was the driving factor? Oh, well, I watched the showrunner of my favorite program advocating that they should all die, allegedly. That'd be interesting, wouldn't it?
I think trivializing killing and murder is really, it's crazy. It's a really stupid thing to do.
Very.
Well, but it is that is a threat. That is a death threat there. And this day and age, you shouldn't be doing that. It's what I'm saying about this. There doesn't seem to be any adults in the room. And it's quite hostile. But when you're getting that from fandom, it's just nonsense, isn't it? Garbage was saying that Georgia was pandering for years. She has seen what they are really like. Yes. And Stephen's saying they won't defend her because they will get attacked also. That's a good point, because I was saying nobody's come out to defend her of all her extreme leftist viewpoint friends. They won't now, will they? They'll just leave her out in the cold.
And the bizarre thing about the whole thing, we've said this all through the discussion, it's simply her opinion.
Yeah.
But that's what they don't like, isn't it? It's shocking. It's shocking. Thank you for everybody that that's watching us and get with your chats. Lovely to see you all. Please, if you are new to the channel, please subscribe to the channel and don't forget to like and share and do all those things you need to do. But it's so good to see you all in the chat with your opinions here, because that's what it's all about. Wonderful. Jack's saying Peter Davison was right. He totally was right. Timescales is saying Neil Gaiman left too. He will be back. 1 million followers is money. That's the other part about it, isn't it? I mean, you know, how long will it take for them to come back? When you are barred from that sort of platform, how long does it take you to come? I mean, as I'm saying, that particular young man there's been got what, two months maybe, and apparently kept appealing until somebody eventually said, "Don't worry about that particular nasty threat. We'll let you back on." You know. It's incredibly hypocritical. The whole thing is hypocritical. There was another one that I wanted to show you as well, as an example of some aspects of fandom. I want the Star Beast to have a big jump in ratings and win the day because it was great telly, but I also want it to succeed brilliantly because it will upset a lot of prejudiced people. How assumptive can you get? Now, this is somebody that's in his 30s, believe it or not.
Isn't that statement in itself prejudicial?
Yes, of course it is. The irony of these people, they don't see their own they don't see their own stupidity in that sense, do they? They are what they preach. They are what they actually accuse other people of being, you know.
But what they are, though, like you said about bandwagons, this week they're saying this, next week they might say something else.
Yeah. There's no consistency either. And they were saying, I mean, the bandwagon thing, you see that now, haven't you? Because we've got all these marches and stuff going on in London especially, but around the country. And I love it when I watch some of the other young people going out with their phones as a camera, as a microphone and stuff like this. You know, it's all weird now. But they go out and they say to people, why are you holding that banner or why are you marching? And they can't answer them.
Yeah.
That's a bandwagon. But I see it all in Doctor Who as well. And I'm saying it's not just these people here. You know, there are other issues in fandom as well, like the lies and the rumors and the backstabbing and not getting your facts right and stuff like this. But then there's this as well, isn't there? We showed this one as well. This particular one where Russell T Davies liked this comment. This is Helena Bonham Carter. Helena is a Tory transphobe. Please look into this if trans characters are a priority in the show. And there's an example. the showrunner of this show actually liked that.
They'll
And
take
I
it
thought,
of their views.
yeah, I thought Helena Bonham Carter was a friend of his as well. There we go. Yeah.
Well, they've worked together, and they are. But again, it
Yeah.
shows the hypocrisy of show business, isn't there?
Yeah.
You know, and how it can work, and all that fake loviness, which always drove me mad. Oh, darling, you're wonderful, you're fabulous. Of course, I watched your latest advert, darling. You're wonderful. I can't stand all of that crap.
Yeah.
You know, bring the egos down a little bit, but certainly stop lecturing to the public. Our very own friend Problem Being, just to let you know, is now back on X and Twitter platform. He was barred recently as well. And it came out that various people were getting him. Now, one of the reasons he was barred and hunted down was he was talking about the ratings of Doctor Who. He came onto this show, didn't he, guys, to talk about the ratings of Doctor Who. And believe you me, that didn't go unnoticed by a certain section of the alleged fan base of Doctor Who. And poor old Problem Being was abused and attacked through typing, through the old keyboards. Yes, and it wasn't fun for him, because for a little while there, he was only off for a few days, but that still says something. And the appeals obviously went through and he was let back in. And certain people weren't happy. This was one of those things. I'm glad I covered him, Problem Being, spreading the BBC Fudge the Numbers news story on the stream this week, because if I'd have sat on it for just a few more days, all his tweets would have disappeared. And as you can see there, that was when they were celebrating Problem Being's account being suspended. I spent so long, says another person, reporting his many, many, many vicious tweets and got nowhere. So this does put a smile on my face. Really, what nice people. And all because he wouldn't have agreed with them. He would not have agreed with what they were saying, and he would have put a case against it. So they hounded him, and they got at him, and they mentioned him on particular shows on the Tube of Hugh. It's truly sad, isn't it, everyone?
It's vile, and it's a little bit pathetic, though, isn't it? I mean, if anything, it just shows that they have a fear of being disagreed with. And, you know, they can't just exist in that world where everybody can have their own opinion. Everybody can have their own view. You know, we don't mind them having their own opinions or views, no matter how much they might come across as absolute tools, allegedly. But it's still their view and they're still entitled to it. But what they want to do is stop anybody else having a view, especially if it doesn't agree with theirs. And it just highlights that they're just a bunch of bedwetters. I'm sorry, it's pathetic.
I just worry that with society, guys, we have lost that art of debate. And thank you to Doug for this one. Debate and difference of opinion is no longer encouraged. It's certainly not. It's not taught in schools anymore. I think we're all of a certain age. I remember having to go to various English classes where instead of having to study Shakespeare or a text or write poetry or whatever it was, you had to sit around with groups, and you had to. You were given a subject, and it was called discursive essays.
Yeah.
And that was part of your exam as well. I seem to remember up here in Scotland, you had to do a discursive essay exam part of it.
And
but we learned
the topic. Yeah.
And they were giving that. And I remember shouting across the classroom with each other. And then you had to shake hands with everybody at the end of the classroom. That was a beautiful way to say this is how to integrate into society. Yeah. Now we don't have that, do we? We've lost that.
What would happen if you know, you have these various people, you know, what if they were all in the same room with us and Problem Being and other people? You know, I've seen them criticizing Nerdrotics, heel versus babyface, and people like that. What if they're all in a room together?
It's a hell of a party.
It would be interesting, wouldn't it? But I don't think they would be quite as. I don't think it would be quite as vitriolic on their part. Because I think there is a keyboard warrior element to it, but it would be interesting to see how they coped when other people were there trying to have an adult debate and they could not function, because I don't think they would be able to function.
It's worrying, isn't it? Because when we do go to conventions now, I think we possibly have been in the room with some of these people, but I don't see a lot of it. And the couple of conventions I went to last year, it was not there. because everybody was just having fun. And I didn't see any of this, what I always called the Purple Rinse Brigade at these two conventions either. So I don't think they're actually supporting the show to that level. They might go to a massive, big, very expensive Comic Con to see Jodie Whittaker or whatever her companions were called, or the other woman one. They might go to those, but that's the minority, isn't it? They wouldn't come to anything we go to see the likes of Peter or Sylvester necessarily, because it's something they're not interested in. That's my theory, because I just don't tend to see them. They all tend to be on a keyboard and very vocal about it and very protective. And I just wondered how and when did they come into our fandom in 2017? Have they always been there? They couldn't have been, really, because these kids would have been babies surely when Eccleston was on the so how have they done that? And have BBC staff, Ian, been responsible for nurturing the venom that comes from a lot of them now, because there's no responsibility from any of them, even though there should be under the impartiality rules of the BBC.
The impartiality of the BBC, it's a little bit like that BBC fact-checking service, isn't it? It's not really very good, is it? And especially seen as though the person that runs their fact-checking thing faked their qualifications, allegedly. It's just not. It's not impartial. The BBC isn't impartial. It claims it is, but then it was there to inform and educate, wasn't it? And it really doesn't do that anymore with black historical figures that were really white. So if it's prepared to ditch that element, then what won't it ditch?
Exactly.
Fact checking is a contradiction in terms, isn't it? That's it. Yeah.
I wanted to mention this, what Simon's saying here. The sad thing is the right is growing for some reason and the left is terrified and overreacts. Both groups of activists are very loud but very small. The loud get voted in. Now, I'm going to disagree with you, because from my point of view, as somebody who's centre but is always assumed to be on the right, and as I've said it before on the show, as a mate of mine said, I didn't leave the left left me. I would say it's the extreme left that's growing. The extreme left, and they are actually repeating mistakes made in the 1930s and 40s. That's what I see, Simon. So I'm going to kindly and very politely disagree with you on that one, if I may, because I don't see that at all. I see the right, especially the extreme right, very quietly, nowhere to be seen, to be quite honest, letting the left destroy everything for them to do their job for them. I find it horrific when it comes to the political balance, as it were, there. And people like all of us, because we would normally, I'm going to speak for the guys here, we would be centrists. The three of us are centrists, really.
Yeah.
But now we find ourselves a little bit towards less of centre because of what's going on, and we're simply reacting to all that. And because it's enforced on us on our show now, we end up coming on a live stream like this and talking about it. It's a bloody science fiction show. We shouldn't be talking about this.
It's about, at the end of the day, it's just a show. So just enjoy the show, for goodness sake. And
we can't, though, can we?
We can't. That's the thing. But in terms of going back to what you said about when it started, I think it was probably 2017 when it started and all that started to kick off. I also agree about the fact they're all kind of keyboard warriors. If they had come to an event with Sylvester or Colin or whatever, they wouldn't kick off publicly because there's no defence, nothing to hide behind. So they couldn't do it public. They don't have the nerve to do it in public, really, in front of people live in the streets or in a convention. They've not got the wherewithal to do it or the social skills.
Exactly. I've been called this on many occasions, garbage, a man baby, they're crying, the most stupid thing of it. No, it's the fact is that you can see an idiot when you get to a certain age, i.e. man baby age, you can see an idiot coming a mile off, but before they even open their mouth or even type something. And usually when they do type something, you can just see shallow, hollow. Actually, as I said, that they are what they accuse others to be. It's usually bigoted. It's usually some sort of nasty element. There's a lot of homophobia in the TQI cult, as I've mentioned before, and they just think they're the perfect ones. Actually, you're not. You are what you don't like. You've created the situations yourself. You're very, very. You can be quite nasty. This is another one from Doug. So sad now. People live in fear of cancellation. What happened to free speech? Well, free speech has gone down the toilet. Let's face it. In Western society, certain other superpowers must be laughing then. Artists off us, they must be absolutely ready to just go, right, we're going to have them one of these days. That's another news story outside of Doctor Who that's hit over the weekend, isn't it?
And try fighting with your keyboard over that one. Yeah.
Well, try fighting somebody and asking what their personal pronouns are before they shoot you in the brain.
Interesting that, though. Have you noticed that since they're talking at war with Russia, which is like coming from nowhere, because it's like most things, a distraction, They're talking about calling people up now. Now, obviously, these snowflakes will just mess their pants, which in itself would be funny. But they're wanting people to sign up. And of course, the first people that they want to sign up are the straight, predominantly white males of a certain age that have basically been demonized for the last 15, 20 years. And they want them to fight for a flag that has been demonized for the last 15 or 20 years. I think if they try to call up, they'd get a huge shock on that front, because people just aren't as compliant anymore, especially since post-COVID. But yeah, it's certainly getting interesting at the minute. But you're absolutely right about they're all keyboard warriors, and they would be quiet as mice if they were face to face with the people that they're slagging off. Not suggesting that the people that they would be face to face with would be threatening them. They'd just have to be stood there, and they just would not have the grapes to say it, I don't think. And they certainly wouldn't be able to hold a debate. Not at all.
Yeah. No, it's true, isn't it? They just wouldn't be able to do that. And it's worrying, isn't it? Garbage is saying here, I hate the BBC for keep calling people the far right. I don't understand why they're doing that. I really don't. You see it all the time. We've certainly seen it in interviews with various people from Doctor Who, and we've shown them on this show. We've had the slides, where basically the rise of this and the rise of that, and these people that don't, or people, 144 people complain they're all far right. No, they're not. No, they're not. They're just questioning what's the motive. Why are you doing this when you should be presenting a drama or a family-friendly, unbiased, unbigoted, unbalanced science fiction show, which is no longer a science fiction show? We're going to be having fun when it comes to reviewing the 8 new episodes that are on the way. It's going to be fun. Hopefully everybody will join us with that. Let's have a look here. There's lots and lots of chat coming up everywhere. I can't keep up with you all. Just Simon there. Our confusion here is a minor instance of the difficulty of text communication. Of course it can. It's like an email, isn't it, Simon? Yeah. I remember having this years ago. Do you remember when they actually taught you what an email was back in the turn of the century? I remember saying at the time, something along the lines of, actually, this is going to be dangerous because we all read things differently. And by God, I was right.
But that's in the tone of a text or an email can be misconstrued quite easily because you don't know what the tone is written down. You know what I mean? It's really weird. Subject to technology, I remember when I first got a computer and sent my first email, then I sent my first attachment. I felt like a scientist. It was fantastic. So,
yeah. Thank you, Jack, for that. We are a toxic white male panel. Absolutely. And we're proud.
Yeah. That's right.
Totally proud of it. And Tony's saying, I would love to see Snowflake's reaction to some of the greats of 70s comedy shows. Well, you can't because they're banning them all and censoring them and clipping bits out because it's all problematic. Another one of our little phrases, but it is. You know, Kenny Everett's on now on one of the channels. He's on for at least 5 minutes. I was amazed that they kept Hot Gossip, one of the best dance groups of its day, on television. Fabulous, choreographed by Arlene. Wonderful. But I was so surprised to see them in some of it because I thought, hang on a minute,
Well, they've been showing Benny Hill on that channel as well, so I'm very surprised.
Yeah. But Garbage is saying here, I'm not looking forward to the new stuff. I'm just not. I didn't think it was going to get worse than Chibnall. Blue Worm. What was it Churchill said about the left? The equal sharing of misery. Yeah, and Kirsty is saying that we just keep her around for equality. Yes.
Yeah, she's our token female. That's how it was.
It's not because she's lovely or she's got a personality or she's good at what she does.
That's got nothing to do with it. I'm telling you
that. Yeah, she ticks a box.
Yeah.
But no, that's it. But this is where we are. This is the state of fact. I think this is a topic that we're going to be coming back to, guys, every so often when we're talking about fandom, especially as we're going into this, because it's continuing and it's getting worse. And Mrs. Tennant is just the latest in a long line, isn't it, really? And it does also seem to be one-sided. It really does. But just to reassure everybody as well, if you know, problem being, he is now back on his X platform. He's back on there. And boy, they do not like that at all. So it's going to be a case of counting down the minutes from now as to when they try to get him cancelled on there again. It's terrible, isn't it? That's where we are. And it's all because of a TV show as well. This whole thing has just managed to get into this. Doug is highlighting it beautifully. Sorry, Paul. I used to see myself as a leftist hippie. By today's standards, I'm a right-wing dictator. Absolutely. Go on, Paul.
I was going to say I look forward to Problem Being's future tweets or X's, whatever they're called now.
Whatever they're called now, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Definitely.
Well, listen. This has been a really lively show. Thank you, everybody in the comments, in the chats there. Thank you for all your opinions on that. It's absolutely fantastic to see you. Really great audience. I hope you've enjoyed this particular show. This is where we're at. It's Who's Views. This is Headlines. Of course, we've got lots of stuff going on for you in the playlist. We've got lots of stuff coming up for you, but it won't be long, I am sure, until we're back with headlines, because as soon as they give us a headline, we're going to be looking at it and discussing it. So please please subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to say thank you to Paul and thank you to Third Doctor Ian. Lovely to see you two as well. And thank you for your input. Always a delight as ever. Don't forget that if you want to get in touch with us with anything that you think we can make use of in the show, get in touch with me at whosviews1@gmail.com. whosviews1@gmail.com. Who's saying things to Timescale is saying fun show, everyone have a great day. Well, I'll be going to bed shortly, mate, but yes, absolutely. Jack is saying bye. Oh, it's really going up here, look at this. Blue Worm is saying onwards and upwards. Yes. Peace out. Simon is saying TTFN. Ta-ta for now, Simon. Lovely to see you as ever. Oh, it is fantastic. And Kirsty is plugging that, our Instagram there as well. Stephen Tatar and Tony, night all, great show. Thank you for your input for this particular show as well. And when George watches this as well, thank you, George, for your input for this particular show. This is Who's Views. This is Headlines from the guys. We will see you again next time. Have a great rest of the night. Have a great day if you're abroad. We'll see you again shortly. Bye.
Good night.
Bye.